What is the most intense race against time you have experienced? The prize I think goes to a guy I knew in grad school. He was one of those senior grad students who seemed to have been there forever. I was futzing around in the lab late one Friday afternoon when I hear him scream and he comes charging into the lab yelling, "Where's the printer toner? I need toner," and he ended up sprinting around the whole floor ransacking everybody's offices looking for a toner cartridge. Turned out you can only stay in that PhD program for 10 years, after which you're booted out. It had been 10 years. It was the last semester of the 10th year. He'd been working on it part-time for ages, chipping away at it. It was the last week. It was Friday. It was 4 p.m. Friday on the last week of the last semester of the 10th year, and the grad school offices closed at 4:30, and if he didn't deliver a final printed hard copy of his PhD to them by 4:30, his entire last 10 years would be a waste and he wouldn't have a PhD. He was in the middle of printing it out and the printer had run out of toner. LOL. Real nail biter. He found another toner cartridge somehow. As word spread, all the junior grad students sort of gathered around to witness the printing of the last pages and watch him go sprinting away to the admin building. He got it in and he got his PhD. Had a deadline to submit evidence of a drug's purity to the Canadian government to avoid long delays in approval for sale. The last experimental evidence came in the day before the deadline and they wouldn't take a fax or email for the application. So I had to fly to Ottawa and hand the documents to the person in charge. I felt like a secret agent with important papers. The way the flights worked, I was gone from home the same amount of time I normally was for a workday. Whoa. One time I had to poop incredibly bad while driving to the airport to catch an 8 AM flight. Stupid coffee. Traffic got increasingly worse, which lessened my chance of making it on time, so I couldn't stop and go on the way. At one point I almost accepted the fact that I might poop my pants and have to change at the airport. Luckily, it didn't come to that and I made it to the airport without an accident. I poop walked to the bathroom before discovering I missed my flight. All that for nothing. I arrived 2.5 hours early for my flight from Heathrow to Zurich, only to be told my travel agent had fricked up and the flight actually departed from London City Airport. Google Maps told me if everything went perfectly it was a 1.5 hour trip from Heathrow to City. Was the most intense tube ride of my life. I almost gave up when I had to transfer to light rail in central London, but made it there as they were shutting check-in. Pounded 4 pints in 10 minutes in the airport bar. I was so stressed. Such a British solution to a stressful situation. Hats off to you, good sir. Flag of United Kingdom. Probably not as intense as some others, but I used to work for a very popular Mexican chain. I basically could do, and did do, every single thing in that place. Make the food, work the line, duty goes, cashier, grill, the works. I also did a lot of caterings. I could easily put together food for 40 people, get to the location, and set it up in 10 minutes flat. Well, one day, I see a catering hanging on the column where we would tape them. I haven't seen a single person making caterings today. I look at it, catering is for 120 people, due in just over an hour, with a 15-minute drive. What the frick? I ran around like a maniac getting that bee together, yelling at everyone who got in my way, and not a single person helped me. Best part, the regional fricking manager was there. Lucky for me, she graciously let me use her company RAV4, since no way was this catering gonna fit in my little coupe. I was maybe 5 minutes late. Another lucky thing, it was a giant family of Mormons, so everyone was at the ready to help me unload. All I had to do was set up and make it pretty. Turns out it was the wedding reception for a couple that was on their way back from the temple, and I'm pretty sure that bride would have been pretty sad to not see this stupidly well-known food there for her reception. After all, if I hadn't caught it, the food simply would not have gotten there. I didn't get jack crap for saving my manager's asses though. Frick those people. You're a modern day god. My mum was admitted to hospital. She was in severe clutches of dementia. Very weak body that was shutting down because of 2 diseases. I was told she had minutes left, so I raced to the hospital. Usually a 40-minute drive, but I did it in just over 20. Got there just in time. Somehow, despite of the dementia, she often forgot who I was, and being in such a bad state she was in, she remembered who I am. She squeezed my hand, pulled me in for a hug. About 3 minutes later, or that hug and hand squeezing, she went limp. What an intense race against time to get there. Patient came to unit and hospital basically already coding. For some reason, the majority of our system was down, internet and therefore, a huge portion of our software. So patient arrived on unit, we coded them, and they bled profusely. The whole time, we are trying to get the patient admitted into our system so that we have access to their files and care properly, get supplies for them. Long story short, the admitting team did not have the ability to admit them at that time, so they did not exist in our system. The blood bank at our facility chose to not provide blood to a patient on a unit without having them in the system to have record. They did not listen to any of the doctors on the team, nor our supercharge. Because of their protocol, we had the patient's needed type, so that was not the issue. Patient was semi-stable after we coded them, but lost too much blood, as was in a very volatile declining state. Family stepped in after nearly 45-60 minutes to make the call to let the patient pass. Patient died because blood bank had a protocol to not distribute blood to a unit for a patient without having it on record. Even though in the air, they have that exact thing. Someone died because of a stupid protocol that could have been reconciled as soon as our system was up again. Bet your butt the blood bank got chewed out that next day, as well as their supervisors. I hope they got more than chewed out, that caused someone to die. I was supposed to head out to California to visit my parents, and my sister-in-law was supposed to drive me to the airport, and then drive my wife and me back home after the trip was done. The wife was already out there on a work trip. There was a huge snowstorm a day before my flight, and the airport I was flying out of was shut down. I spent the entire day talking to the airline, trying to reschedule, and having flight get cancelled. Finally, with 3 hours notice, I get on an early flight the next day, but out of a different airport, one that's an hour away on a good day. I called my SIL, woke her up and asked her to get to my house as soon as possible. She got there and I had 2 hours before takeoff. We took my car, a little VW Jetta Turbo, on what my SIL still calls Mr. Papilius Jones's wild ride, through barely plowed streets and icy highways. Made it in an hour and 5, and just barely made it through security before boarding. It was insane, but I was happy I made it, just in time to wait 2 hours for the flight I was taking to arrive from its delay. See, I don't know if I'm just superstitious or what, but you know that if you hadn't made it to the airport on time, that flight would not have been delayed, and you would have missed it. My kid was in the backseat and said she was going to puke. I pulled over to the side of the road, whipped off my baseball cap and caught it. It was seamless. I don't even know where the idea came from. The idea came right off the top of your head. I once dropped my cell phone while ice fishing. I didn't really think about it until it hit the side of my foot and slid straight to the hole. There was no hesitation as it dive bombed toward the bottom of the lake. I dropped to the ground and thrust my arm into the hole down to my shoulder and was able to grab the phone before it dropped out of reach. Probably couldn't do it again if I had 1,000 tries. Luckily we were in a shanty with a heater. Phone dried out and worked fine. Now when someone asks what's the best thing you ever caught while fishing, you can tell them a working cell phone. My mom was dying and I couldn't leave the country without a permaban from returning because my visa expired. Basically I had applied for a new visa and it got rejected due to mistakes by the government worker. So I appealed and my appeal sat on in a pile for 1.5 years without anyone looking at it. My mom suddenly goes into septic shock and kidney failure and here I am in another continent. My only options were to just walk away from my life completely in order to say goodbye to my mom, to not see my mom before she passed, or to sue the government to address the issue. I went with option C. 24 hours after my mom was admitted I was in court. The court rules against me on one technical point and schedules a hearing on the second point. So I figure I'm fricked as I leave the courthouse. The government lawyers show me a grainy WhatsApp pic of my magically approved visa. Turns out they knew they would lose on that second rescheduled issue and decided to moot the whole thing. I get my plane ticket, My visa arrives the day I'm supposed to fly out. I come to get my visa and they notice my passport number is 1 digit off from the one written on the visa. The visa is declared invalid, so I need a new one. After begging, they decide to let me use it and I just have to get a new one when I come back. I make my flight with minutes to spare. Get to my mom's bedside as she comes out of her coma. She makes a full recovery. I'm out a few $1000s, but I have my mom and my visa. So happy. Dude, that is messed up. Glad it ended on a happy ending and you still have your mom. I had less than 24 hours to find my passport, get to an airport, buy a ticket, mess about with immigration and checking in and everything, fly back to Poland from the UK, get my luggage and then get a train halfway across the country when my granddad fell ill. Most terrifying 16 hours of my life. I imagine the train ride took up a lot of that, seeing how fast PKP can be. Had to drive my mom the 20 minutes to a hospital at 2 AM for a failure to breathe episode. She has congestive heart failure. It was pretty terrifying and she wasn't approved to have oxygen at home at that time. Still, back home you don't call the ambulance as the crews are volunteer. Unless there's blood and guts involved in a call, the crew will take its sweet old time. It took 45 minutes for an ambulance to arrive while my grandfather was dying in his driveway. The mailman was performing CPR on him that afternoon. Since then, we drive ourselves. Just before I started high school, I had an idyllic family Disney vacation at Disney World in Florida. My stepfather had suddenly come into some unexpected money and decided to take the opportunity to do the whole big perfect vacation thing. Have a lavish vacation with lots of memories, and do all the Disney parks and then some. The night we were at the Magic Kingdom, we were far away from the middle area where the parade was about to start, and the crowd was pretty dense. We could already hear the revelry beginning. I didn't think we were going to make it, but my stepfather was determined not to let that happen. He grabbed who he could by the hand, my 3 siblings, my mother, and myself, and we took off. It was quite a sight. Here was this 6-foot-something tall giant of a man carrying his entire family through hundreds of people, leaping over boundaries and fences like we're running from the dang police. I could see the determination on his face, with the lights and decorations of the Magic Kingdom at night gleaming in his eyes. And we made it in time. I remember it vividly. He was your superhero that night. When I was 29 and living paycheck to paycheck, I lost my job and had about $1,000 left to live off of, in an area where it was going to be hard to find a job that paid a living wage. It only ended up being 7 weeks of unemployment, but I had to move on a shoestring budget and borrow money, and every day felt the enormous pressure of the coming running out of the money I borrowed deadline. My wife collapsed in the kitchen while I was giving our 3-year-old son a bath. I knew he shouldn't be left alone in the tub, but I had to check on her. I knew she was due to die soon, but not today. She had vomited and broken a tooth and said she couldn't breathe. I hauled her to a seated position and got her puffer. I said I'd be right back. I raced to get my son out of the tub and dried off and put him in his room. When I got back to the kitchen, she was dead. You did what you had to. It's probably no help saying this, and I'm sorry if it's not the right thing to say, but you could have lost 2 lives that night. You honestly did the best you could. I'm sorry for your loss. After staying up all night on acid, I realized I had a multi-page research paper due that same morning and I hadn't started it yet. I got a B+. Multi-page research paper. Well, I would hope so. So my girlfriend wanted to replace our old body pillow, so went on Amazon and bought 2. Failing to even read the dimensions. Not the first time. These pillows are freaking huge. They're basically me. 6 feet 1 inches and 220 pounds. We tried a couple nights but only one fits in the bed. Barely. Well, she had gone to work and I had a flight to catch for work that departed around 9 AM. I live in the downtown of a major city, so you have to be there usually more than an hour. Sometimes 2. If you want a guaranteed seat. Well, this pillow was so huge that it extended off the bed and onto the floor where my phone was and completely muffled the alarm. I woke naturally at 8 AM. Not dressed, not packed, and still needing to get my car to the airport lot and take a shuttle to the airport and then go through security and then the gate. I sprinted up, threw on the first clothes I saw, threw some clothes in a backpack and ran to the car. I probably hit 90 getting to the airport lot and got lucky to be the only one on the shuttle. There was too big a line of security and I was surely fricked, but they opened a new security point down the hall, so I full sprinted to it and was first in. Got through, but my gate was about the furthest you could be. I printed again and I could hear my name on the speaker. Last call for smooth appable for flight blah blah blah. So I made it right as they were closing the doors. Less than an hour ago I was sleeping. The crap faces I got on the plane were abound, but I didn't give a frick. I had accomplished the impossible. And I forgot all my underwear. One time when I was 13, I was in Hawaii on vacation, about to go parasailing in 5 minutes. Then it hit me, a wave of intestinal pain. I was about to crap my drawers. I had to find a bathroom, quick, so I ran. I ran from the docks further into the streets of Hawaii. I ran and ran and ran until I saw a building that resembled a hotel. I did my best to calmly walk in and ask, "Hello, is there a restroom here?" The woman at the front desk pointed to her left and I calmly walked into it. I let it all out. The bathroom was a nuclear wasteland, but I had made it. I sprinted back to the docks just in time to catch the parasailing group. This is probably my most prized accomplishment. As a person with an intestinal disorder, TLDR, almost crapped myself 5 minutes before parasailing in Hawaii. Ran until I found a bathroom in an extra fancy hotel. I made it. I had to give a sperm sample for our infertility. I was given a wee jar and told to have it. There's a lab in my home city where you take samples, so I rang them to find out what the deal was. I was told that sperm samples actually only last an hour and that I'd need to take it direct to the hospital's lab. In case you're wondering, deposit is a lab technician's euphemism for ejaculating. I rang the hospital and spoke to the lab technician, explained what I was doing and asked, "Do you have, like, a room?" The tech said, "I know what you're asking, and number." So I thought to myself, I can do this. I live about 20 minutes away from the hospital. I'll have some me time, then zip into the car and get to the hospital. Deposit complete. I hit a stopwatch on my mobile phone and jumped into the car. 1 hour to go. I got to the road into the city and got stuck in a massive snarl up due to roadworks. It was summer and we were having a weirdly warm day. I was stuck in a traffic jam. The car was heating up, and there was a jar of jizz on the car seat next to me. This was not how I'd envisioned my life turning out. After 20 minutes I got through the traffic jam, got onto the motorway, and boom, the tunnel is back the frick up too. What the heck? I'm starting to have a wee panic that I'm going to have to rinse the jar out in the hospital and deposit in the car park or something. Finally through the tunnel and to the hospital with 8 minutes to go. I dashed into reception, not 100% sure where the lab was. In my haste I neglected to hold onto the jizz jar, which is crucial. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you are carrying a sperm sample, hold onto it. As I tore into the big HOI hospital reception, the sample jar flew out of my hand and the world slowed down. The jar spun, must have been 400 times, as it headed towards the hard tiled floor. I watched in horror. Nothing I could do. It landed on its lid, didn't crack. Made a heck of a noise though. Lot of people turned to look at what the heck had just gone down. I didn't even care at this point. I swooped up my sperm and headed for the lab. Got there, rang the bell and a technician showed up. "Hi there," I said warmly. "I'm here to drop off a sperm sample." "And what time did you deposit?" "About 1030. The technician looked at his watch. "You just made it," he said. "Yes," I said proudly. "Thank you." And off I walked. This needs way the heck more upvotes. Man, I lost it at the flying jizz jar. Also, infertility is a B. Realized an hour before my dissertation was due, which I had been working on for months and was going to determine my overall mark for my 4-year degree, that I had somehow included footnotes in the word count and that I was 1,500 words under the minimum word count. Cue a desperate scramble through old emails and drafts to find some discarded material to put back in, on me writing literally anything which came into my head with no time for edits or review. Reading it back, I attempted a literary analysis of a poem about a bumblebee, which is so very far from both my dissertation topic and my major in general. As soon as I got to the required word length, I basically stopped writing mid-sentence with 10 minutes to spare. Then I had to print it. My god. Luckily I had a printer in my room, so I hit print and had to just stare at it while it kept pausing. Then it asked me to change the ink. Somehow I managed to trick it into thinking I had, and it finally printed with 4 minutes to spare. I then had to run to my department to get it submitted. I'm not that athletic and the run over there was pure heck. Got to the building and called the lift, which took too long, so I had to sprint up 5 flights of stairs. Threw it into the submission room as they were closing the door. Thank the baby Jesus. When I was 18, I took a solo day trip to San Francisco from Las Vegas to see the symphony. I found a great deal on round trip airfare, so flying was the way to go. I'd leave Vegas at 3 o'clock and return later that night. The trip out was unremarkable. I didn't know about the BART, so I got an Uber to downtown. Since it was just me, it cost $35 to go 15 miles. Not wanting to spend that much on the way back, I asked about subways and learned that there is a BART station about a block away from Symphony Hall. Easy. The concert was supposed to end at 10, and my plane took off around 10:45. It was the last one of the night. If I missed, I'd be sleeping in the airport. So I get out of the hall and jog over to the station. I missed the first train. Okay, I can recover from this, I tell myself. The airport is close enough. I continue, unaware to exactly how many stops a train makes, not having ever used one. I sit on the train, getting exponentially more anxious as more time goes on. 10:45 come along. I have 6 stops left till the airport. The flight is delayed. Thank the gods, I yell silently in my head. Once the train gets to SFO, I'm ready to run. One problem. There's another train. I have to pay for another ticket and transfer. Mind you, I'm still a BART novice, so this isn't a smooth process. 11:10. The second train pulls up to the terminal. I'm sprinting now. Plane delayed to 11:20. I still have to get through security and find the gate. The line's short. Score, I don't have a bag. So I take off my shoes and am through in a matter of minutes. Now I'm booking it. The plane has been boarding for nearly 30 minutes and I'm not sure if it's gone or not. Have you ever seen someone booking it, barefoot, through an airport in the middle of the night with pure desperation on their face? Yeah, that was me. I get to the gate and actually cry out in relief. The line to board is sticking out into the concourse. I fucking did it. No airport sleeping for me. Trying to drive 200 miles in 3 hours when your GPS is telling you it will take at least 4 hours due to traffic and needing to make it there by the deadline. Pulled in with 1 minute to go, saw flashing lights behind me while doing 90, and watched as they blew past me. Now that was scary. Patient destabilizing on the OR table. We closed him up as fast as possible by 2 of us closing the first 2 layers at the same time and closing the 3rd layer using skin staples. Scott closed and him off the table in 3 minutes from anesthesia's initial warning, and they were able to stabilize him and he lived. Most intense and efficient closure ever. This is gonna get completely buried in here, but I figure it'll be good to write out. I got to university in Edinburgh, a 2.5-hour train journey from my hometown, in September, and I knew when I left that my mum was very unwell, but I had left her in hospital cause it was the best place for her. 3 weeks into the term at 7:30 on a Monday night, I get a phone call from the nurse at the hospital telling me to get there now cause she was going to die any second. I managed to throw a bag together and get to the train station, a 40-minute walk away, for 8. I rang my boyfriend and told him to get his friend with the fastest car to pick me up from a station halfway cause the train was stopping too much, and I said no matter how many tickets his friend gets for speeding, I will pay them all off if he got me there in time to see my mum before she passed. I ended up getting home in an hour and a half. Literally breaking a few records on the way because there is no way I could have gotten there faster any other way. Unfortunately, she died literally 5 minutes before I got to the hospital. You did your best and it's okay. Descending a large hill on my bike at 30 miles per hour, headed towards a railroad crossing. Lights started flashing. Train horns started blaring. I didn't have enough time to stop, so I tucked like a Tour de France rider and went for it. Missed becoming hamburger by a couple seconds. Dude, that's fricked up. You're lucky you didn't die. When I was like 13, I was grounded for some reason, I don't remember why, but I was watching TV after school before my dad got home, even though I obviously wasn't supposed to. As I'm sitting in the living room watching TV, I hear him walking up the stairs. I immediately jump up and turn off the TV, but in my haste I knock over his ashtray and spill ashes all over my book bag, the floor, and the coffee table. In my quick thinking I grabbed the book bag and ran across the house, threw it in my room, grabbed the broom and dustpan, ran back to the living room, cleaned up the mess, ran back to the other side of the house, put the broom and dustpan away, and went to my room, all in the time it took him to walk up the porch steps and unlock and open the door. The relatability, it hurts. It was in Atlanta's airport, where our first plane had arrived late to catch a connecting flight from a different terminal. We ran along conveyor belts and through seemingly endless connecting hallways, but managed to arrive within seconds of the gates closing. I'm a motion graphics designer and I was on a project where I needed to get an animation to the client while they were backstage at a conference with thousands of people. I had no idea it was so close to the presentation when the producer mentioned they were gonna go on stage in an hour. I was at a hotel and the render was 45 minutes supposedly. I've never sweated bullets so bad as I stared at that render tick down bit by bit as I got calls and emails saying they were literally standing off stage waiting for my animation. Of course, with 10 minutes till the presentation the Wi-Fi didn't work, so I frantically tethered it to my phone and stared at the screen as it slowly uploaded. If it failed I don't know what I would have done. Maybe faked my own death. Multiple people probably would have been fired. This was nauseating to read. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.